Hi, everybody. This is the third and final part of building a weather app using SwiftUI. Today, we're going to look at creating a details view using NavigationView and NavigationList. So we're going to build this navigation in 4 easy steps. First, we're going to create the details view using NavigationView and NavigationList. We're going to update our models, refactor the list of forecasts that are displayed on the main screen, and complete the details view UI. So let's get started by creating the navigation stack. The first thing I'll do is create a new view called Weather Details. The first thing I'd like to do is create a navigation view in my UI. So the first thing I'll do here is write navigation view. And I'm going to add the brackets at the end. For the next step, I'm going to add a navigation link for the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday at the bottom of the UI. Now you can see the disclosures at the end of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, indicating that it could link to something. Now I'm going to link to weather details. So if I click on a disclosure, you'll now see that I can now move to weather details and navigate back. Whenever I click on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I'd like to pass all the information about that specific forecast day. In order to do that, we're going to add a few variables to our weather details. The first thing I'll add is a variable called results with a binding that contains all the data related to our forecast days. The next thing I'm going to add is a variable for the city name, and then I'm going to add a variable for index. As you can see, I'm getting an error in the preview because it's expecting all of these parameters to be added. The issue is that results is very complex and very difficult to hard code. So I'm just going to remove the preview and used our pinned content view to be able to see the changes to our details view. Now we need to go back into our content view. Weather details is now expecting specific parameters. So we're going to add these parameters in the call. So first, it's expecting results. So I'm going to add the API results and add the variable with a $sign. Next, it's expecting the city name. So I'm going to add the city name that we pulled from the API using a $sign. Lastly, it's expecting an index, and I'm just going to add a hard-coded index of 0 for the time being. Now, if we test our UI, you'll see that it's functioning exactly the same that it functioned before. But the difference here is that we're passing the results over, we're passing the city name, and we're also passing the array element of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So Monday would correspond to 0, and Wednesday would correspond to 2. For our next step, we're going to update our models. Obviously, it'd be great to display new data on a detail screen. Currently for the day, we're capturing the average temperature, but it'd be great to capture a lot more information from the API. I've added some additional fields to capture the maximum wind, the total precipitation in millimeters, the daily chance of rain as a percentage, the average humidity, the UV index, and the average visibility in kilometers. When I look at the weather, I like to understand how the weather is going to feel like outside. So I'm going to add the variable in our hours struct. Now, you might be wondering where I'm getting all these variable names. They are being extracted directly from the JSON. You can see them here under forecast day. Currently, I'm using the navigation view and a navigation link to pass data between the content view and the weather details view. The one parameter I'd like to pass along is index. I hard-coded the index to 0, but I'd like to get the actual index, the forecast day of 0, 1, or 2, and pass along that information to our weather details. The first thing I'll do is convert the list to a simple list. Then I'm going to add a for each to enumerate through the results. Lastly, I'm going to add a curly bracket at the end. So using the for each, we're enumerating through the forecast days, and we're also extracting the index for each one of the elements. So rather than put index 0, I'm going to put index as index. Now it's time to update the details view UI and to show the data that we're passing along. First, I'm going to create a Z stack. Next, we're going to add the color based on the day we've clicked on and the weather that it has. Lastly, we're going to add a navigation title. So let's test this out. Next, I'm going to add a scroll view. This scroll view will host the entire UI. Next, I'm going to add a V stack to align all the content on the screen. I'm going to add a spacer and then the city name that's being passed along from the content view. Next, we'd like to put the correct date depending on what you click. So it could be Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. To do this, I'm going to use the results that we're passing into the details view, specifically pulling out the epoch time. You could see that I'm using index. If I clicked index 0, I'd like Monday to show up. However, if I clicked index 2, I'd like Wednesday to show up. The epoch time will convert to the proper date. Next, I'd like to add our emoji, then the current temperature in Celsius, then the text describing our forecast. What I'd like to do now is get the feels like forecast. To do this, I'll need to add a new variable tracking the current hour. Then we could look at our hourly forecast and get that value. If I click on Tuesday, you can see all the information's being passed along correctly. Now I'd like to add some of the data that I've included in our models. So I'm going to add a horizontal stack here. And this horizontal stack will contain 2 vertical stacks of data. The first is the maximum wind speed. And then the second is the precipitation. Looking at weather details, we can see that these new pieces of data have been added. Let's add 4 more pieces of data. I'm going to include another H stack. Within that H stack, I'm going to add the chance of rain. And I'm going to add the UV index. So let's take a look at our weather details. We're going to add 1 final H stack and then include humidity and visibility. Now, if we click on the disclosure, you'll see all of the data has been populated correctly. The only issue is that the back button is blue. To fix this, we need to go into our content view, and at the end of our scroll view, add the accent color. So if we test it 1 final time, you can see that the back button is now white. Thank you so much for following along with this tutorial series.